what was it that really worked? And what is it, the advice that you give to the brands and retailers that item A, B, C, D, E, 5 items that they should be doing, they should be concentrating to help, so everybody is a happy person?
Today, here's what I see. Go a little before COVID, and you had the possibility of a tariff war between the US and China. So that was the epicenter, and from there, the ripples started going out. So everyone started scrambling from late 2018 to look at what next after China, or what can we substitute? What can we move out of China? Nobody wanted to move 100% away from China, maybe 5, 10, 15, 20, 30%. And even off that 30%, the initial movement would be such that your supply chains are not disrupted too much. Because moving out of China means establishing a whole new supply chain for retailers. And it takes time to establish a supply chain that can move that amount of volume. To move 30% out of China is you're moving billions of dollars worth of goods. And billions of dollars worth of goods means now start translating that into how many different fabrics, how many different colors, how many different styles, how many different SKUs. It's a massive operation. And do you have enough infrastructure in the countries that you want to move to in order to look after your production, your pre-production, your quality, your logistics, etc., etc. So it started before COVID, and then came COVID. And COVID was something that nobody was prepared for. So the first reaction was what people are now calling a collective dissonance. Suppliers had to shut down. Now you've got goods in your store, you've got inventory in the stores, inventory in the warehouse, inventory in the pipeline, and you've got orders that have been placed with manufacturers. So with this collective dissonance, a supply shock and a demand shock. Usually you have one or the other. If there's a recession, or if there is an earthquake in some place, or a volcano in some place, or a tsunami, etc., those are, your supply is disrupted, your retail is still alive. 2008, we had the financial crash. We knew there was a recession, and it was the demand that died, but supply was still alive. This was the first time in history where supply and demand both died simultaneously at no notice. It was like shut, and that's it. Throw the switch, everything shut down. And like you said, those who are working for Wall Street or worried about Wall Street, the first knee-jerk reaction was self-preservation. Forget everything else. All the compliance policies and governance and ESG and EHS and environmental health and safety, or ESG, or environment, social, and governance rules, etc., that was made for protecting the worker's welfare, the livelihood of the workers. So the livelihoods went out the door, and their lives were at stake, because most of the retailers, their first reaction was, look at the small print. We can cancel our orders, so let's cancel them. Then let's wait for the board of directors, the legal department, the CFOs, etc., to get together, have their meetings, and wait for the rest. So first reaction, cancel. And the ripple effect of that was massive. It's only later that many of them came back and said, okay, you can ship, but we'll take the goods 90 days from now. Some said, we'll take the goods now, but we'll pay you in 90 days. Others said, you can ship in installments, 15% each month, and we'll start paying you in January. They came up with various permutations and combinations of how to resolve that problem. But that first reaction was something that damaged trust. So what will I tell manufacturers and retailers? The first thing that has to be repaired in the post-COVID environment and whatever the new normal or new normals are going to be is the repair of the trust. The relationships have to be rebuilt. That is number one. After the trust is rebuilt, then both sides have to sit down, and this time at that table, you've got to have more than just the retailer and the sourcing and the manufacturer, but you've also got to have the mills and say, listen, guys, from start to finish, what happened? And how do we prepare to avoid future shocks? So, how do we build resilience and how do we build agility? So, number one, repair the trust. Number two, figure out how to build resilience and agility into your supply strategy or into your supply chain, your sourcing strategies. And number three, at the retail end, you now have to look at who is the new consumer? What is the mindset? What is the consumer confidence? You have people who have lost their jobs and who may never get jobs back again. You have people who will go back to work in a few months but don't know whether they'll have full-time jobs. You have those who have jobs but don't know how long the jobs will last. So with this anxiety, with this fear, with this uncertainty, with this volatility, people's spending habits are going to change. They may buy a pair of jeans and a t-shirt or a polo shirt, but they will expect it to last longer. So you may have to design goods that are more durable and will last longer if you want to satisfy your customer. And who is the customer? Today you have 4 generations of customers. You and I are boomers. The baby boomers are still around.
And
And
they are
most
the
of
one
them,
with the money.
and yes, and they have the money to
They are
spend.
the one who will support and save this economy. The baby
Then
boomers.
you have, yeah. Then you have the Gen X. You have no, first you got the Gen X, the millennials, and the Gen Z. And if you look at Gen Z, what their brand preference are, what their customer loyalties are, it is extremely different from millennials and the boomers. Their priorities, when you look at, because they've grown up with the digital generation. So it's Apple and Amazon are the brands that are their most favorite brands. We grew up without Apple and Amazon. They didn't exist till we were in our 40s and 50s, right? So our brand loyalties were extremely different. Also, the return. What are the things that are not happening today that the boomers and the Gen X's would like to return to, whether it's going to the movies, going for drives? You look at the Gen Zs, they don't miss that. There was a survey done of about 25,000 people, and I read this just 3 days ago. There's remarkable differences. So besides fixing the relationship, creating resilience, agility, building options at the front end of your supply chain, on this side, you've got to figure out your customer's habits, what are the new patterns going to be, and how each one, JCPenney is going to look at it very differently than Gap is going to look at it very differently than Bloomingdale's or Neiman Marcus. So it's not going to be one new normal. There's going to be a lot of different new normals. And there's going to be a lot of potential. Going back to the models of Stitch Fix, Bonobos, ModCloth, even Rent a Runway and companies like that. Those are innovations that maybe now we need to look at mergers and acquisitions. Some of the big guys have to look at partnering with those or buying those companies out, incorporating their business models into their DNA, and let's see what the new success will look like. So I see very interesting times ahead.